healing. Jupiter also is the Celtic god, Tyrannus. And Tyrannus wants nothing more than fertility. We've been reading that today is a festival for the horse in Roman religion. And Mars, the god of war, was originally a god of farming. I think that what would be much better for these young Palestinian boys and young Israeli boys that are in the armies about to kill each other is if they could farm together and develop agriculture in and around Gaza and Palestine. Use all that tremendous energy that's going into building tunnels and coming out and stabbing people to actually be creative and make food. That would be part of the overall peace deal that Jupiter would want, as far as I can tell, certainly Tyrannus. So anyway, he's quite a god, is old Jupiter. And I've been to his temple, which is on the Capitoline Hill in Rome. There's the ruins of it in the Capitoline Museum. Definitely worth going to if you're in Rome. And the irony is that from Jupiter's perspective, he would want peace. He doesn't take sides in these kind of conflicts. Right, the other card we've got, the other tarot, is the Queen of Water. And she is associated with Eros. And the water suit in the tarot is more about emotions, feelings. So some people say that hatred and anger is just love that's gone wrong or can't be expressed. My experience of both Arabs and Israelis is they're all actually really loving people. I've had some really good friends who are both Israeli and Arab Palestinian and other Arab Jordanian and other countries. And they're really loving people. They have tremendous hearts. The problem with coming at life from a purely emotional perspective is that emotions are quite difficult to manage. They can lead to, if you're not in sync with another person's emotions, they can lead to a jaggedy dissynchronicity, as it were. And I think Israel's reacted incredibly emotionally, obviously, to all the footage that we've seen of their kids being brutally massacred and so on. So now they want revenge. There's an emotionality about this policy in Israel. As there is from the Palestinians going and emotionally wanting revenge for all their years of suppression. I suppose the path of philosophy is about respecting emotion, working with love, but sublimating it to the highest level it's possible to work with. In Plato's language, that was working with Aphrodite Pandemos, is the normal kind of love and sex kind of vibe that everyone likes. But there's Aphrodite Urania, who was a heavenly goddess. And she asks that we sublimate our eros into the highest form of eros, which is the love of wisdom. And interestingly enough, Herodotus said that the god worshipped in Arabia was Aphrodite Urania, the goddess worshipped. There's evidence that in the days of the ancients in Arabia, they certainly worshipped the Queen of Heaven, who was like the consort of Allah. And part of the uncovering of the deep healing that's needed here is that divine feminine needs releasing in its highest form, Aphrodite Urania. This is a job for intellectuals, and then I'd love to work with my Arab colleagues and Islamic friends, and that's what I've done in my commentary on the Quran. I've tried to explain how the Quran is actually full of divine eros, Aphrodite Urania. There are clues. And she was very important in Palmyra in Jordan, which was a very important Arabic intellectual centre. we need to have discussions. I've been very happy to chair a discussion about the role of Aphrodite Urania as a peacemaker between advanced Israeli intellectuals and advanced Palestinian intellectuals. I've had those conversations, but informally, in discussions. Maybe we should do it formally. And the other thing, just to finish on Eros, is that the story of Eros is very interesting because the god Eros is so powerful. He's such a kind of a transformative power that when he falls in love with Psyche, his girlfriend, he doesn't want her to know who he is. He comes to her at night. This is in the legend of Apuleius, great novelist and pagan priest from Egypt, a Greek-speaking Egyptian, who gave us the first really fantastic novel of history called The Golden Ass. And in there's this brilliant section where it tells the story of Eros, falls in love with Psyche, but guards himself, doesn't want her to see his true divinity because he's afraid she'll run off screaming and, who's this in my bed? Whoa. So he pretends to be normal, a human. And then it all goes wrong when the girl, Psyche, is determined to see who her lover is, and lights a candle to see his face. And he's beautiful, he's amazingly beautiful. But actually some hot wax drips onto Eros and wakes him up. And then he knows that she's broken her word, so he leaves. And that's just one part of the novel. Then there's all kinds of adventures, and she eventually wins him back, but she has to pass loads of tests. Now, I interpret this in a Jungian sense. This is the same plot line that Krishna tells Arjuna at the moment of the Mahabharata, where the Bhagavad Gita is being received. No, I won't show you my face, because you won't be able to stand it. Krishna says, I can't reveal my true self to you. But Arjuna insists and says, go on, I want to see who I'm talking to. And then in that moment, Krishna reveals himself as the sustainer of the world, the divine, formless. I mean, every star, every planet, every human, every village, every city is within the body of Krishna as Vishnu. And he sees all this in a flash. And then he says, oh God, no, I can't take it. It's too much for my little brain. Okay, so then there's another version of this same story, which I think is a psychoanalytically impregnant story, which is when Moses says to Yahweh, look, here I am bringing your law, I'm here on Sinai, I'm being a good prophet, doing everything, but I want to see what you look like. Who are you, Yahweh? And God says, you don't want to see that, Moses, no. And Moses insists, show me. And in fact, they do a deal that Moses is only allowed to see God from behind. But even that is enough to send his hair white, and he regrets it. It's like too powerful a vision for him to see. I think that psychoanalytically what these stories mean is that deep inside all of us, in our human nature, there's a divine spark, a prophetic consciousness, a wisdom nature. But society, sociologically, doesn't affirm that. It doesn't let us reveal that, either to each other or even to ourselves. It's suppressed. And that's what I've called Sophiophobia. We're in a world here where the whole planet is engaging in the oppression and suppression of wisdom within ourselves. And these stories tell us that. And the story of Eros being afraid to let the woman see, that's another version of this story. And, in many parts of the world, if you say, I'm divine, I have a spark of divinity in me, then you'll be called a heretic and, burned at the stake as a witch. Or in many parts of history, the knowledge that I'm sharing here, gnosis or wisdom, Sophia, has been seriously suppressed. here in France, we have freedom of speech. I can talk about these profound things. And in other parts of the world, but in some parts of the world, it's still like taboo subjects here. I would like to see that change. We're only going to succeed as a planet if wisdom can come out and reveal its true profundity in each of us, right? And that's, to me, what this Eros story shows as well. And I think what's happening with the Israel-Palestine conflict, partly, is they're not recognizing the divinity of the other or within themselves. So country X or people X suppress their own divinity, or they overemphasize its egotistical aspects, and then they don't accept the divinity of the other. I would like Israel-Palestine to both let the candle fall the wax and see, that we're all divine, ultimately. That's the real secret that's being suppressed. And I think when we suppress that, we get war, which is the end result of the suppression. It's the final ontological desire to kill the other, which you can't ultimately do because the other is the self, as the Upanishads teach us. And the whole thing, therefore, is ultimately a self-destructive thing. That's what we've got to grow out of. But it's a very complex, psychologically rooted self-destruct mechanism going on. And as a philosopher, I'm just saying, let's heal this rather than perpetuate it. So anyone out there that understands what I'm saying and wants to help, spread the word. It's time for healing, people, and reconciliation and wisdom and love instead of violence and suppression. Right, okay, we'll pause there, and any questions or points you want to make about that?
I have another interpretation of this, of the
Eros psyche
of water.
Okay.
Yeah, that this relation between the psyche and the Eros, I think it points me to an idea about the conflict in Israel and Palestine, and I think it's the psyche is governed by Eros, is possessed by Eros, by emotions, and the emotions are, the psyche cannot realize that it's possessed by emotions. So they are making moves, the war, based on emotions, like hate and fear and whatever, but they are not recognizing it, they are not lighting the light to know that they are emotionally driven in this war, because this war is not serving the agenda of Israel or the agenda of Palestine. So it's not objective, and
it's emotionally driven.
It's emotionally driven, and absolutely. It makes no sense, and so that's the point when you that aligned with your argument that we have to light the light of divinity and see where we going and what are our conditions that are making us emotional, hating each other and whatever. Yeah.
No, thanks for that. Yes, and just two things commenting on that. I've always interpreted Christ walking on the water, one of the miracles that the New Testament talks about. This guy, Jesus, he could walk on the water. Now, what that is an enactment of this capacity to love but sublimate emotions. The waves represent... I've been to the Sea of Galilee, it gets choppy, there's lots of waves. Now, I think that's what that is symbolically saying. Whether he actually walked on the water, I don't know, I suspend judgment. I've tried it, it's really difficult. I've walked on coals, that's easier. I think we should get some New Age workshops going where people have to practice walking on the water and see if they can do it. At the moment, so far as I know, it's only possible on coals. But anyway, that's the symbol of what Christ was saying, which is come to a place of such powerful, like objective love, what Hegel called objective spirit, meaning it's the subjectivity when it's taken to its ultimate becomes objective. It's what's behind the world. It's Jupiter. And if we anchor our love in that degree of strength, then we can walk on water, you know. The other thing I would add is that I don't think it's only hate that's at play here, the emotions.
Fear.
I don't think it's only that. Now, I think it's also love. And this is a paradox, because I edit the only journal in the world on the nature of love, academically. You know, Israeli soldiers will go into fight if they're going to invade because they love their country, they love their people, they love their family. And they maybe lost people who died in the killing, and they love their memory. The Palestinians are fighting because they love Palestine. They love the people they've lost, the martyrs. So in a weird way, love is also causing the conflict. But it's the wrong kind of love. It's love for the self, my type, instead of love for the whole, humanity. It's the kind of love that caused Brexit, which is my love of, you know, Englishness instead of my love of all Europe. So we have to be careful with love as well. It's a dangerous tool. I'd just add that. Shall we do another one? Let's just finish off with one more, shall we? Because that's very exciting. Here, have a shuffle up and choose another one.
All right. All right. The Night of Air. I'm not sure if I'm gonna pronounce it right. Quetzalcoatl.
Okay, Quetzalcoatl, the ninth of air, is it?
Yes.
The night of air, sorry, the night of air, okay. Yeah, yes.
I do another one.
You do another one too, yeah. Well, we're going to compare the two.
Two of air Uranus. Is that a number?
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
two of air. Can I have a look? Yeah, excellent. These cards were painted, hand painted by a brilliant Syrian artist. So she's from the Middle East, in fact, a Christian Syrian Orthodox who came here to the Peace Museum a couple of years ago. Right, so this is interesting. We've got, they're both air cards, which is about communication and you know, the internet, and a lot of wars now are fought in the information sphere, cyber wars and so on, people claiming all kinds of stuff, and that's true in Israel, but it's also true in the Ukraine-Russia conflict very much. Quetzalcoatl is a knight of air because he's a very positive energy. He's from the Latin American culture, Mexico and the Mayan region, and all round Central America, basically. He was a hero god, and he's represented by the warm winds that come and bring fertility. So the promise of Quetzalcoatl is, I'm not going to send you typhoons and hurricanes. You know, I'll sort global warming and extreme weather conditions. Please turn back to me. He's the god of righteousness and truth. He was the god of the people in Latin America that didn't want human sacrifice in the Native American Indian tradition. And they opposed the sacrificial cults as dark magicians. These were the white magicians of Latin America. He had an enemy who was always trying to bring him down, which represents, if you want, the devil figure. And that's a whole story. You know, the devil is very much part of this conflict of Israel-Palestine because both sides kind of believe in the devil, and they're projecting onto the other guys the devil, which is a ridiculous situation. It's like fighting a war in the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles, where King Charles just had a banquet with President Macron discussing how to save the planet from global warming. I personally would much rather have a civilized discussion like that than you know, sort of blowing the thing up in destructivist tendencies. But that's what the devil does. Anyway, as for the devil, I've written a book called Comparative Diabology. So I've launched a new academic discipline, which is the scientific, philosophical study of the devil in all religions. Zoroastrianism, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and so on. And what that means psychologically. What it means is you've got to be very crafty on how you deal with those energies. And the first man in Britain, Goodwin Barmby, who was the first person to call himself a communist, said there had to be a reconciliation between God and the devil. They're split from each other, but they're actually the same being. And it's time to grow up and be civilized enough to reconcile them. And that's what he meant by being communist. It meant everybody wins. He wanted a version of history where everybody wins. At the moment, we have these schizophrenic versions of history where the good guys win, but the bad guys lose, and they're the devil. Well, I think what Marx and what Goodwin Barmby was saying was, we want to rewrite our understanding of history so that everybody wins, even the devil, even the most oppressed, even the lumpen proletariat, as Marx called it. And that means reintegrating the Palestinian. If you're an Israeli living in a nice, comfortable, middle-class world, Palestinians are horrible. They're dirty, they don't have proper houses, they're angry and jumping around all the time, they're trying to kill you and stab you. Yeah, and they're the devil. But you've got to reintegrate them into your own world and realise you're part of the same universal psychic current stream. They're just human beings like us. And if you're a Palestinian, angry at the rich middle-class Israelis that are sending in bombs and planes and can afford it because they've all got homes in LA and they're all American dual citizens and stuff, you're really angry with them and they're the devil. Well, okay, but actually they're just us too. We're just human beings. We're all the divine, which has diabolic and divine tendencies. And that's the level of enlightenment I think we have to take this conversation to. Now that's what Quetzalcoatl would say. And the good news is he's coming back. He was the saviour god who was forced to leave Latin America because the forces of evil got so strong. They made him go into a boat and leave. And the bad guys took over. And they've been running the show ever since. Torture, look at the story of, crisis, and even democracy doesn't seem to help. In Brazil now, they're about to vote for a new president, and yet the currency's all collapsing, and because the other guy's the devil. Politics has become a diabolic contest, like Trump has introduced this, that I'm the guy, I'm the saviour, and that guy's the devil. No, what we have to do, the Quetzalcoatl is the real saviour here, particularly for the Americas. And he brings back a time when righteousness and truth prevail, instead of lies, deceit, and all the rest of it. So if Quetzalcoatl could be given the job of mediating this conflict in the New York UN headquarters, which I've been to, by the way, and spoken at, he could sort this out in a couple of days. Because his energy was so pure and righteous and kind and loving. He would love both sides equally. Part of the final peace deal should be recognition of Palestine, and that they are a state, they do have rights, therefore they have passports. That has to be on the table. But as Obama managed to get them almost to agree when he was president, Palestine would not have an army. It wouldn't be like a military state. It wouldn't threaten any other country. They have a police force, that's all. And Obama nearly got them to agree this. So anyway, I think Quetzalcoatl is a great deity to invoke at this time. And then we have the second of air. He's a knight, by the way, so he can pull that off. So Uranus is the god of the skies or the heavens. And he's a very important deity. If I just find his image in the book here. One of the primordial deities. And his wife is Gaia. Mother Earth. So this is the whole heavens, who loves Earth so much. If you want, he's the hidden deity behind the Green Movement. The Green Movement has adopted Gaia as their symbol, which is lovely. But I think we should also adopt Uranus, or Uranos, as he was pronounced in Greek, because the whole universe wants this planet to live in peace. And I think if we spent our energies more on exploring science and outer space and exploring planetary, the miracles of maybe life on other worlds. There are loads of exoplanets around. I'm sure they could solve these kind of problems. If we take it to the level of Uranus, then I think maybe we can get a sort of a mediation going. So that's one kind of interpretation. The other thing is that it's about intergenerational conflict, because Uranus was castrated by his son, and he's called Kronos in as well. So Kronos it was that did Gaia's bidding, because Uranus was devouring his children. And so Gaia, who was upset at this, got Kronos, the youngest of his children, to attack the father, Uranus, with a sickle. And his genitals were thrown in the sea, and out of that came Aphrodite. This is a hell of a profound and deep and complex story, which can be interpreted in many ways. Some of the interpretations I've seen show that the sickle points to this being very, very ancient. This is a Neolithic story. Each generation kills the previous generation to succeed it in power. We haven't found a better way of solving this intergenerational transfer of power. But we have to. And in a civilized democratic culture, the new generation, youth, come into power through education, through training, through becoming mature, right? Not through war and killing. One of the things that this story teaches us is that, I was brought up in a generation that still looked back to World War II as the worst thing that had ever happened to humanity. The concentration camps, Nagasaki, Hiroshima. And I was taught to work for peace because we had to stop it happening again, ever. And I met people who'd fought in the war, and they told me the horror stories, and my parents lived through it. They met in the Blitz in London, and it was horrible. And so I was brought up to really care about this stuff. I think that what we have to do is realise there are now people that it's like war's become almost normalised. What would have been horrific and unthinkable, these kind of conflicts like Ukraine, Russia, to my generation, now the youth are just flocking to go and join the armies. I think that's a failure of education. I've been trying for years to get a Peace Studies Institute in every university around the world. Why isn't there one? Why do we have war studies departments training youth to be killers, and not peace studies departments training youth to be intelligent peacemakers? I think the priorities are wrong. I wish the UN could do more, but the UN total budget is less than the New York City Police Department. They just don't have the money to do everything we'd like. So I think one of the first acts of Quetzalcoatl would be to bring in a thing that each country should pay 1% of its GDP or 0.5% or something towards international work for peace through the UN. So I'm just saying, the Irana story is profound, and it requires us to get intergenerational power sharing going. I was attending a conference at the UN online during the UN Peace Week on 21st September to the 28th about the need for intergenerational solidarity. The UN is finally realizing the youth of the world and the older ones have to work together, to solve the problems of the planet. We need the old guys with their experience and their knowledge and their expertise, and we need the young ones with their enthusiasm and fire to come together and not do mutual castration anymore. This is, I think, the story. We have to grow out of this kind of brutality that was there in the past. So anyway, if you're interested, read the actual volume, which goes into the Urana's story in great depth. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Any comments or questions about these two? They're quite challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, Quetzalcoatl was always described like a snake with feathers. Could that be?
Yeah, that's the same guy, the rainbow serpent feathered guy.
All right.
Yeah. The feathered serpent, yes. But this is just one way of representing him. That's a traditional way as well. The feathered serpent is the Kundalini energy of the chakras when it's risen to its rainbow height. It has the feathers of many colours. That's what that symbolises in the ancient esoteric traditions of American Indians.
Very nice.
So he represents enlightenment, if you want, in that culture. The same as Buddha or whatever.
Beautiful picture. Super.
Yeah.
All right.
Any comments finally? Okay. Well, we'll stop there then. Thank you so much for joining us in the Philosophy Club. I just pray that by the time we meet 7 days from now, the world is still at peace and can move towards resolving these problems. I'm certainly here for any philosophical mediation people want to draw on. I noted the Russian ambassador to the UN offered Russia as a mediator. Please mediate your conflict with Ukraine, and then we can take that seriously. But Russia has so much intellectual genius that it could help with these conflicts. They've been close to the Palestinians for many years. We need Russia to stop its silly war in Ukraine and then come back on the world stage as a responsible power, where it could help resolve these conflicts properly by using its incredible resources of mind and energy and all the rest of it. So please come back to the peace team, Russia. We need you. Thank you.
Thank you.